And you all heard the nice voice that tells us recording is happening. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for making the time this morning at the very, very end of this very busy month. While we were chatting, we were talking about how this semester just seems like it hasn't ended. And I think really in a way, it feels like since spring 2020, nothing has ended. And so I really hope that after this is over and after the month of June has concluded, you're all able to find some time to really, truly rest because you deserve it. And that's important, and it helps us do our jobs better. So thank you so much for being with us on this IttS wild ride that we've had. It has been a successful venture, and I'm going to prove that to you today. And I'm also really excited to explore more ways in which we can continue to build on that success. You all are the most important people in this process because you are the ones with the students every day. And that is incredible work that you're doing. I know it was hard. I know it was uncertain. I know it was probably scary sometimes, frustrating other times, but you did it, and we couldn't have done this without you. So thank you so much for everything that you've given to this mission over the past year, over a year, really. So I have some slides real quick. I'm gonna blow through these slides very, very fast. I just want you I wanna take stock for a second, okay, about where we came from, where we are, and where we're headed. And then what's going to happen is toward the end of this presentation, I'm going to pause and I'm going to invite one of our brand new colleagues, Edwin, who is our financial literacy and management specialist. And Edwin is going to give us some great information about how we can do even more good work with helping our students on that particular unit, which is so, so important to our Title V mission. And Title V has been so important to essentially doing things like supporting this course. So for example, you're all going to get stipends today. I'm going to keep track of who's here, and the stipends are coming from Title V, right? So without Title V, we don't have a lot of support for this course. And I'm really excited that we're going to be able to give our students more resources and information about how to manage their finances throughout their education. And Edwin's going to help us with that. And then after Edwin shares those resources with us and talks to us about that, we're going to look forward and think about what are some things we want to change about this course and how do we make that happen. Some of it will happen before September and some of it will be an ongoing process. So that's kind of our rough agenda for today. If you have any questions, what I'd love for you to do is I will pause sometimes while I'm blowing through these slides and see if you do. But also at the end of this, I'll ask, and you're welcome to put anything in the chat. I probably won't see it right away because I'm sharing, but I'll get to that later. And if someone asks a question in the chat and you know the answer, feel free to jump in, okay? So I'm guessing you can share my screen, is that true? Everybody good? You can see the slides? Okay, excellent, great, let's keep going. So just a quick reminder of where this all came from, right? This is a part of RCC's Guided Pathways redesign, and what we did when we were working on Guided Pathways is we divided our work across 5 teams, and each of those teams was led by a faculty member and an administrator. Team 2 was led by Joe Falco and myself, and our job was to look at how RCC does advising and how they do the first year experience. And first year experience, by the way, is a term that not everybody on campus knew and still doesn't know. It's something we're still working on. Like, what kind of experience do we give our first year students? So our team split into 2 subgroups. And we had a first year experience subgroup, and some of you in this room were in that group, and I really appreciate your hard work there. We focused on creating a mandatory first year seminar course for our Guided Pathways version 1.0 to be launched in fall 2020. Now remember, these were the halcyon days of 2018 when we had no idea what 2020 would be like, but that was our plan. We decided on the first year seminar course, which would eventually become our IttS course, because we wanted to have as big an impact as possible on as many students as possible. So the idea was putting out a mandatory course, which is a best practice in so many different kinds of institutions, including many community colleges. We thought that was what was going to have the greatest degree of impact for us. So that was where the rationale behind IttS came from. Now, of course, you're familiar with our school structures. This was the initial formulation in 2019. I know things have changed since then. We have Meg Nolan on the call today, who did so much great work on this with her team. And then in terms of what our design and implementation timeline was, I just want to remind you of where this all came from. I've divided this up into quarters. You can see what we did in each quarter of 2019. I'm not going to go through this. I'll share these slides with you if you want to read through them, but I just want you to remember where we came from, right? To take stock of where this process all came from. And we continued that work in the first quarter of 2020. It was the first time we piloted this course. That was me. I was able to teach a pilot version of the course. And we squeaked it in right before the pandemic happened. We actually only lost one class at the very end before, right as we extended our spring break. And so that led us into the rest of 2020, which was the process of doing some training all remotely and trying to figure out how to adjust the modalities that we'd need to teach this course. And many of you, most of you, were here for that work last summer. And we really, really appreciate your participation in that at a very uncertain and scary time for all of us. So just a quick reminder of what the basic course learning outcomes were and continue to be. Each of your courses, you may be teaching BPS 101, you may be teaching ESS 101 or SAH 101, or like me, Honors 101. But all of these outcomes are in all of our courses, and each dean has the opportunity to add course learning outcomes to these, but these are the core, right? We want to define the purposes of higher education and the policies and expectations of RCC. We want to help our students use essential technology, help them locate support services, create goals, and we're going to talk a lot about the goals today, specifically around what is their career goal, what kind of education do they need for that, and how are they going to finance that education. And then we also want to help them demonstrate the ability to communicate effectively. And we'll talk about ways that we can do that even more robustly in the future. What you'll remember, because most of you have taught it, we have some folks on this call who have not yet taught it, but this curriculum is keyed to Lumen's College Success course. These are the various units within the course. And one of the things we'll be brainstorming at the end of today's meeting is, do we need all of these? Can we make some of these optional? I'll be really interested to hear what you all have to say when we talk about that. And when we look at some survey data from some of the faculty who responded to that. We also integrated two different tools into our work with IttS. So the first is Waymaker, Lumen's Waymaker, which sits underneath the text in Blackboard, and it helps us with a few different kinds of interventions for our students. So first of all, the students have personalized study plans that change color based on the little pre-test that they take before they even get into the work of the module, and that helps guide their passage through each unit. There's also the opportunity to set up the messaging systems within Waymaker, and those messaging systems help us interact with our students and help us stay connected to them, which of course has become even more important than it already was during the pandemic. We also have enriched OER course materials, so the material is very interactive. It has videos, it has little activities that you can do. And finally, Waymaker is data driven. So it's collecting data on our students, and we will be asking Lumen to share that data with us because they have it and they will share it. You know, that's part of their mission as well. And then we also integrated Focus to Career. Focus to Career is a piece of software that the college now has since last year, since about a year ago. And it helps students explore majors. It helps them do career plannings. It offers multiple assessments. And we linked a lot of our activities, our main graded activities in this course, to Focus to Career, which is customized for us. So it looks different for our students than it would for students at other institutions. So just a couple reminders. This is what the Waymaker, the study plans look like. Again, I know some of you are old hat at this. You've done this. You know what this is. Some of you are brand new. So I just wanted to make sure that you see what the course looks like. We had a Waymaker review session last week that many of you attended, and thank you for that. The recording has gone out to everybody, and I will send it out again after this meeting is over today with the slides and this recording as well. So everyone will have the material that they need to learn how to use Waymaker. And of course, if you have any questions about how to do that, we can help you. There's a lot of different people who can help you, including Lumen. They're very, very receptive to help. And then we also have Focus 2. Just took a little screenshot of what I see when I log into Focus 2. If you don't know about Focus 2, we will make sure there are opportunities for you to learn a little bit more about that. There are some great tutorials that exist made by Focus 2. And we also have some of our academic advisors who are basically our point people for Focus 2. Okay, and you can do it, by the way. I did it. I did all the assessments. You can see if you're supposed to be a faculty member at a community college, or if you have completely missed the mark and Focus 2 says you should be doing something else with your life. I actually find that to be a very interesting exercise. There are some of our students who, when they go through Focus 2, they get very upset that what they want to do is not reflected in those results. And I think that's an interesting moment. I see some nods from people who have taught the course. It's a great moment for conversation with your students about what you want matters, and you don't have to let a computer program tell you what to be, but this is a way to explore other options, right? And it's a very robust program. For example, let's say that you have a student who wants to be a vet, but when they do all the assessments, they don't get vet. They can still go and look up veterinarian, and they can look up the salary and the education required and the projection for the future for the job, right? They can still look that up. So it's a great piece of software, and we can easily do more training on it if that's needed for you all. Now, shifting from where we were to where we are, this is our pass rate this year. This is really exciting. We started in the fall with about just shy of a 70% pass rate, but by the time we got through the spring, we had raised that to 80% overall for fall, spring across all schools. Now, I have a really great spreadsheet that breaks everything down. Fall, each school; spring, each school. Definitely will be sharing that with you, but this just wanted to give you a quick snapshot. What you see here is pass rate, fails, withdrawals, incompletes, and X is a retroactive withdrawal. So there aren't really any of those. But we have an 80% pass rate across all the schools. So congratulations, everybody. And that is a great place to start. And I think we can make it even stronger, right? So as we think about continuous improvement for this course, some of the big questions that we have, and some of these are questions we'll discuss today, but some of these are questions that are happening with the deans, okay? But these questions are, why did new students not take the course? One thing we know is that there are a fair number of new students who didn't take the course. Now, on the one hand, this is actually kind of good for us in terms of experimentation, because we actually have a significant chunk of students who didn't take it, and we have a significant chunk of students who did, and we can compare them going forward, right? And we are going to do that. We're going to get more data on, for example, did students who take this course tend to have higher GPAs? Did they tend to come back in the spring, or have they already signed up for the fall? We're going to ask those questions and answer those questions. So that's really exciting. But we also want everybody to take it. So we need to figure out how to do that. And that's a question that involves our deans and advisement, and it'll be a team effort. Why did students not pass? This is actually a question we asked you, and we can continue to talk about this today. And we'll keep coming up with strategies to, of course, help our students pass. Now, if a student just checks out from the course entirely, sure, they're not going to pass. But we want to keep developing strategies for helping our students succeed, and you're a huge part of that, and I appreciate that. And one of the other big questions is, how should we modify the curriculum and the delivery of the course? And that's something that we'll also be discussing in just a few minutes. In terms of answers, so we have already started looking for answers to some of these questions. The deans and I and our wonderful Title V group have met a couple times. We also had a faculty survey that was administered in March 2021, which I really appreciate that many of you answered. We had 2 great focus groups that were held in May, and those focus groups helped us with a lot of great information. We have course revision ideas. We have additional professional development that will be optional, that we'll push out later this summer. But we're excited also to brainstorm some of these questions with you all today. So that's where we have been and where we are. Do you have any questions about this before we sort of turn to the future? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm going to see if anybody put anything in the chat. Looks like no. So I will send those slides out. I know I blew through them really fast. One thing I didn't really tell you is that I have been out and about, not really, but in Zoom, talking about this course. So for example, I've given presentations on it in a SUNY context, also in the context of our Guided Pathways Institutes. So people across SUNY are aware of what we are doing. And there was even an invitation after a presentation that I made to a group of faculty that was SUNY-wide, there was some follow-up saying, can you talk to us about the choices you made for this course? And there was a great meeting between me and some folks from Orange and some folks from Tompkins Cortland TC3. So we are in many ways a model for what other schools want to do. And that's really exciting. Do we obviously have a lot to learn still? Sure, we do. You know, we're not ever going to be finished with getting better at this work, but we are seen as a leader in this across SUNY. So I want to acknowledge that and thank you for your role in that. And now I'm going to turn things over to our wonderful new colleague, Edwin. And Edwin, I'd love for you to introduce yourself, first of all, because some of us still don't know you. And then Edwin is going to help us with one big thing we know we need to do. So we have a great financial management module from Lumen as part of the text, and it's required. It's a little bit old, honestly, right? Edwin and I had a great conversation last week about how, yeah, there's some nice information in there, but it's also kind of old. Lumen is updating the text. They have promised to update it early next year, early 2022. But Edwin, in the meantime, is going to help us with talking more about what is financial literacy and financial management, what are some resources that we can offer our students and activities we can do with our students to make that part of the course even more rich and helpful for them. So I'm going to turn things over to Edwin and give him the power to share. Edwin, take it away.
Thank you so much, Katie. And thank you for the great introduction. Hi, everybody. As Katie said, my name is Edwin Rivadeneira. I am the new financial literacy coordinator under Title V. I am sure some of you have already seen my presentations that I've been doing. I feel like for the past 3.5 to 4 months, all I've been doing is introducing myself. So today I'm going to make it a little more informal and really get a conversation started with all of us. But until I know for a fact that I've met everybody in the Zoom room that I'm in, I am going to continuously introduce myself because I think it's important to give you guys the perspective that I'm bringing in order to understand the way I'm trying to shape what we do with financial literacy. So to begin, I am not a certified financial planner, nor am I a financial advisor. What I am is a financial aid advisor that has been working in higher education for the last 10 years. I'm also a first generation student that came from a low income background. So I've made every possible mistake that you can make as you're going from community college to the 4-year institution. From taking on loans just because I wanted to take all my friends out to dinner because I wanted to be that guy, to taking on credit card debt to pay for a trip during the summer. I've done every possible wrong step that I could take, and it wasn't until I got later on in my 20s that I realized the mistakes that I made. And that's what sort of brought me towards this career in financial aid, where I've been advocating for low income and first generation students, because this is not information that we learn on a regular basis. In fact, some of the conversations that I have with my students, this isn't even conversations that we have with our parents, because sometimes it is taboo for us to talk about our finances with our parents that are coming from low income, because they already feel that what they're doing is a burden to us. So why am I going to share that with my child? Which is why it's important that the perspective that I give you guys is always going to come from the student side. I've been blessed in my career in every single college that I've worked at, that I've had the opportunity to focus on financial literacy. So while my work was always on financial aid, I've always had the opportunity to either do financial literacy workshops or financial literacy presentations that allow students to really get engaged in this information and have the opportunity to be exposed early on in their life to key information that is going to be important for them to learn throughout not only their college career, throughout the rest of their life, about their personal finances, about budgeting, about being a responsible borrower, about not being scared of student loans if you understand what interest is and what benefits come from a federal student loan. So that is who I am in a nutshell. That is what I'm bringing to the table, and that's really why I'm here with you guys today. Because something that I do, that the first thing that really I felt made me feel confident in this position was the fact that this course existed, because this course is important to all students. And I had the opportunity to attend a focus group when I first got hired, where we could have that conversation with students to see how they felt about this course. And students that did attend the course all said the same thing, that they found this very helpful. And it is very helpful. So now really we just need to see how we can use this information to help our students build that platform for the rest of their college career. So I know on the agenda it said I had about an hour for you guys. I don't think I have an hour's worth of content for you guys. So please feel free to ask any questions at any moment. This is all still in the works. I am brand new to the position. While I am new, ITTS is one of my focuses. One of my focus, as it is part of my job description. I need to figure out ways to be able to help our students with financial literacy through ITTS. So before we begin over what I see this becoming, and for those of you that have had the chance to attend one of our presentations, I always have a common theme: who I am, my background, and let's understand our demographic. Because I think it's important to understand what the students are thinking when they're in these classes. So when you see the glossy-eyed look, you don't think, well, what I'm doing, the students find boring. It's more so what you're doing, the student is just like, I don't think this applies to me because this isn't what I'm currently experiencing. So what I'm going to do is going to go over a series of 4 myths that I have personally heard throughout my time when speaking with students, and tie them into what's currently being taught in the financial literacy module within Lumen Learnings, and then as well as the supplemental workshops and or resources that students will have outside of ITTS that you guys should be aware of that can help guide this conversation further. Before I do that, though, I do want to make sure that I explain what my vision is for this, for what I'm going to go over with you guys. This is by no means am I trying to criticize anything that's being taught or anything that's being said. What I'm simply doing is trying to bring out new ways to engage our students in a different light. Because when it comes to personal finance, there's that barrier that doesn't allow the student to think this applies to me now. So I want the students to know, first of all, that you guys are just exposing them to subjects at the base level. But then I also want the students to get from this class that there are additional resources that are supporting them in RCC, that this is what they're paying for, whether it is through a financial literacy coordinator setting up a meeting with me to go over their budget plan, or setting up a meeting with financial aid to go over the resources that are available through the FAFSA, or whether it's through the clubs that are currently available at RCC, such as the Students Economic and Investment Club, where students can practice investing with hypothetical, I believe it's $10,000 in hypothetical money, so that they can see how the market works for them. All of these are resources that are available to students right now at RCC that, if they're introduced to early on, allows them to practice these financial literacy skills. And as you guys will hear me say every single time that I have one of these presentations, financial literacy is not something that is a given. It is something that is not learned right away. It is something that you need to practice early and that you need to practice frequently in order for you to really understand how your money moves and how to make your money work for you. So let's go over some of the myths that I have heard students tell me, what's being currently taught in the ITTS, and what additional work we can do to help them. So the first myth that I often hear is, right now I don't have time to focus on how my money moves. I have to worry about my education. I have to worry about how I'm going to pass this class that I've never heard of this information before. So once I'm in my career, then I'll worry about my money. But for right now, I'm just going to focus on passing grades. Now, why is this a myth? The reason this is a myth is because if you don't establish strict disciplinary budget spending early, once you have a career, that's not going to change. It's the wealth effect. Because you right now have low income as well as low expenses, the way you manage your money right now is the best way to really learn basic strategies that will help you down the road. Currently in the ITTS program, you guys have there's a module that teaches about budgeting and saving and personal finances. And so I think this is important for students to hear this information now, but to apply it to them directly, we need to bring in their personal finances, have them go over the college cost of attendance and what their cost of attendance will be for that semester alone. So the students can really see, this is what I owe to the school, and have the professor identify these expenses, but then have the students say what additional expenses they have on their own. Whether it's a cell phone plan that they pay for themselves, whether it's their rent if they're an adult student, or their mortgage if they're an adult student, or their childcare. Have all these expenses spelled out, and then have the students set up a budget for themselves that we can do a follow-up within that class. Now, I understand that with the module, you guys have a lot of work as it is. So what additional resources will you guys have available that can help you with these students that are going to have questions about their personal budgets? Well, you always have me, where you can have the students be able to set up a one-on-one workshop with me that we go over budgeting. That is one of my one of the current resources that are available to students. I have already started working with students on setting up a personal budget so that they can understand the difference between direct expenses, those that are due to the school, and the indirect expenses, those that are not necessarily due to the school, but are items that they're going to need to pay. Beyond that, there's going to be supplemental teaching coming this fall. One is going to be a workshop called Building a College Financial Plan, and how to avoid the wealth effect. Basically what I'm talking about, where students think, once I have more money, I'll worry about that later. Let's set up some strict budgeting now so that you can start practicing how to be strict with how you spend your money and how you take on additional expenses. The myth number 2 that I've always heard from students, I know I don't want to take out any student loans, so I'll just pay for it with a credit card. We've been drilled in our head that there's so much student loan debt that this incoming cohort of students that are starting to attend college always tell me the same thing. I don't want to take out any student loans. Okay, that's good. So then what are your resources for covering your financial plan, for covering your school? That's when you start to hear students from low income or students from a first generation, well, I could just use a credit card. And I believe in the classes that I believe in the class, the Lumen Learning teaches about credit and how to spend. If we can shift that conversation to have the students talk about their current resources so that they learn the difference between a 3% subsidized interest rate on a subsidized loan from a federal student loan or 18% interest rate on a credit card. Information that a lot of times students overlook. They just think, I know I don't need to take out student loans because right now that is the number one burden to a lot of people that are graduating. They have to pay back student loans. And what isn't often thought about is that if you're putting this on something that is a higher interest, it's at a detriment to you. And there are some benefits that are available through the resources of the FAFSA that can help students to really cover the gap that's available, that's still outstanding for their tuition or for indirect expenses. So I think that's something that if we shift the focus in the conversation to allow students to really see the impacts of how taking out student loans as a resource only. So don't do the Edwin 10 years ago where you're taking out student loans because you just don't want to work anymore and you're using these loans to go on trips and buy clothes. No, really be strict with your budgeting, as we said in myth 1, and then now work on your resources and how they benefit you to understand how interest can be a benefit to you depending on what it is your resources are. Some supplemental work that will help teach these students additional work outside of IttS will be a fall workshop that we're going to have actually the first Friday of September. It's going to be called Understanding the FAFSA and the True Cost of College, where we do go over direct and indirect expenses with the students so that they know what to expect, but also understanding the full scope of the resources that they can get from submitting a FAFSA. Myth number 3. I will just work more while I'm in school to pay for my school, even if it means sacrificing classwork for income. And this is one that I've experienced myself. This is one that has been a common thread in students in my community, in the Hispanic community, where they have to work to not only provide for their family, but also to pay for their own costs. And low income backgrounds also have to do this a lot. But this also comes from students that may even have that resource at home that they're just telling, well, if you work, you can pay. That way you don't have to take out student loans. And what students are missing here is the importance of graduating on time. Graduating on time not only limits the amount of unnecessary expenses that you have to take. And what do I mean by that? So if students are working, let's say 30 hours a week, and they're taking 3 classes in a semester, and one of those classes is a math class that they're not doing that great at, and they fail that class because they haven't had the time to be able to study, to really get to know the intricacies of the class that they're attending, because they're working all the time. Now they got to repay to take a class, when if they would just cut back on working at the time, they don't have to worry about that additional expense. The other unnecessary burden to the students for not graduating on time is that they're making a lower income while they're currently working. In fact, statistics show that students, once they graduate, have an opportunity to make a much higher income than they have while they're currently in school. And students don't tend to think long run when it comes to that. They want to think about making ends meet now. So if we stress the importance of not taking on unnecessary expenses by extending the amount of time that you're in college, but also that you can enter the workforce sooner so that you can make more money sooner, it allows the students to really reframe their thought and shift into a more positive um, income commitment, so that they know that once they graduate, they're while right now I just have to wait it out with a strict budget and just not always going out to eat on Fridays, making sure that I provide for my family, make sure I meet the minimum expenses, so that once I graduate, I've already established my time management skills because I'm working full time and I'm attending school. But I've also had the ability to do budgeting. I've had the ability to understand my resources should I not need to work the full time, so that I can graduate and enter in the workforce sooner, so that I can make more of an income to better support my family. And if I do take out student loans, make sure that I'm paying those back with time. The supplemental teaching that we're providing for this already within the new student orientation, students will have a financial literacy module that talks about the importance of graduating on time. So from day one, before they even attend school, they're already going to be exposed to this. But this is additional information that can be taught to students. In fact, in the Lumen Learning, there is a part that says there is a part that you guys teach to students where it's working while in school. This is a great opportunity to stress the importance of graduating on time for those students that are working full time. And for those students that are not working full time, enabling them to take either more classes if they can do it, so that they can graduate sooner and get into the workforce sooner. And then myth number 4, which is the one that isn't necessarily being taught, but it is one that's my favorite one when talking with students, is I'm just going to keep my money in savings. That way I don't lose. That way I don't lose any of my money. What I mean by that is a lot of times when I hear students that are working, they're putting their money in savings, and we talk about, okay, so what is your long-term plan? They might not necessarily have a long-term plan. It's just they know every single month they got to put whatever they have left over to savings. Now there is a specific course within the Lumen Learning where you guys talk about savings, and I think the information that's being presented on there is perfect. There's nothing that needs to be changed. It might need to be updated just a little bit, but the information that's on there is perfect for the students to understand the importance of savings. But then I think we need to take it a step further and allow the students to establish a short-term goal. Most of the times that short-term goal for me when I'm speaking with students is establishing a 3 to 6 months savings to cover your expenses should something happen, whether you're working or whether you're not working. You still want to actively save up to be able to cover your 3 months expenses. This is something that at this point in our life, a lot of us already know we either have or we need to have. But students don't learn that while they're in college, that they need to save up for at least 3 to 6 months worth of their expenses. And it doesn't really hit you until you have that car breakdown, or your laptop malfunctions, or something happens if you're a homeowner, or something happens to your personal items that you have to pay for, and all of a sudden you're either putting it on a credit card, or you're making serious decisions about your education, or something that involves your education to be able to cover these expenses. So if we can teach the students early on about setting short-term career goals, and then also start thinking about long-term career goals, because one of the main information, one of the main items that I felt that I didn't learn until I was much later on, that I wish somebody would have taught me, was cost of inflation, right? So when students are keeping their money in savings and they're saying, I don't want to lose my money, technically you are already losing some of your money in purchasing power. Now this is a more advanced, what I call level 2 learning in financial literacy, but it is information that will be provided to students through supplemental workshops. So if you guys can start out in ITTS by teaching the importance of saving and the importance of long-term savings, then spring workshops that we're going to have called Understanding Purchasing Power and Compound Interest. That way students know by having it in savings, you actually are losing money. But if you do something like a high yield money market, or if you introduce them to terminologies of certificate deposits or the stocks, now you're starting to learn about interest, that the money can grow for you. But by knowing that you have that money already saved up to cover your expenses, any additional money that you save on from there, now we can have that money grow for you and have your dollar earn another dollar. There's also going to be another spring workshop called The Fundamentals of Investing and Understanding the Definition of Risk, where students will be introduced to basic terminology about investing. Not investing advice, not teaching them where to invest their money, but teaching them what investment means and teaching them the definitions of a CD, of a stock market, of what a security and a dividend is, so that students know that there are opportunities to grow your money, because that is something within my community that's I feel I always have this conversation even within my family where they're like, I'm not going to put my money in the stock market because the stock market, you can lose money, there's risk involved in it, I'd rather just keep it in savings. And there's historical data that shows that the stock market, whether it goes down or up in a 2 to 3 month span, almost always goes up, and your money staying in savings will lose a certain percentage due to inflation and taxes. So this is all information of conversations that I've had with students that can be paired with what's currently being taught in ITTS, and that will have supplemental learning through financial literacy workshops, as well as the new student orientation and the financial literacy website. So how can we support the professors, which is I'm sure what you guys are asking. You guys already have enough on your plate. And as is part of today's meeting is to see how we can make some of the information that you guys are currently teaching, how we compress that. Just to let you know, this is something that I'm currently working on, because it is something that one of my tasks was to make financial literacy be embedded in ITTS, but RCC already has that, right? So now my job is to see how I can help you guys to make this more engaging for the students, and how I can help take a little bit more off of your plate so that the students can get these resources, but not necessarily request that you do more than what you're already being asked to do. The first conversation is actually something that I had with Katie last week, where we talked about what Lumen Learning was currently teaching. And she already went over with you guys that we do think a lot of the information that they're teaching is solid, but it does need to be slightly updated. And there is some information on the student loan section that I feel definitively needs to be updated, because it might not be to the benefit of the students. But already from there, we've determined that within what you guys are teaching in the Lumen Learning, the section on personal financing, savings, and budgeting can be compressed into one teaching, because that is all going to be, savings and budgeting is all part of personal financing. So by having 3 different sections on it, you're just teaching the same thing 3 different ways, which is not necessarily bad. But if we can engage the student in teaching them about a college financial plan early on, and then have them use their additional resources, whether it be, again, reserving time with me, speaking with the Office of Financial Aid about their resources through the FAFSA. Now we're encouraging the students to reach out to the resources within RCC, so that it's not just solely on you to make sure that the students retain this information. If you guys have attended any one of my previous presentations before, I often show you guys games that I institute with my students. In fact, in presentations that I've already done in both ITTS and with other organizations, I always have a strategy of how I go in and teach students to keep them engaged. The first is to show them short clips and videos that are fun, but still get the point across about budgeting, still get the point across about understanding needs versus want. And then I have the students engage in a game. So one of the games that I've done for you guys, if you guys have seen before, is called Payback. So I am actually going to share a screen with you guys on here so that you guys can see real quick, for those that didn't get a chance. Let me move this so I can see it. Okay. Payback allows the students to basically go through 4 years of college in about 20 minutes. And the entire time the students are trying to figure out how they can survive their collegiate life without taking on too much student debt, while still being social, and while still spending time with their family and passing their grades. So the game is very interactive and allows the students to basically keep the focus on their education, their connections, their happiness, while not having too much in student debt. It takes about 20 minutes to go through. But the beauty of this game is that even while the student is going through it, once you get done with it, they actually provide you information on here to be able to work with a post-game conversation. So this is already one of the ones that I've used before, where we can ask the questions to the students of what they felt were some smart choices that they regretted within the game, so that they now know they can establish a game plan for their real life. Games like this really help not only the professor take a step back and allow for the students to really think about the lessons that they're learning, but it also allows the student to actually get questions in their mind about what they need to ask you or what they need to ask additional resources. Something that is often an issue when students are learning about financial literacy is that they feel like if they ask a question, they're going to be the stupid one in the class. They're going to be like, oh, this is common knowledge, I should know this already. And it's not true. In fact, as many of you guys I'm sure in here can attest, there's things about financial literacy that you're probably just learning now as well, where it's like, wow, I didn't know that. And so something that I encourage in every single interaction that you have about financial literacy with a student is to share the mistakes that you've made, to break down that stigma of thinking that the person that is teaching me knows it all about financial literacy. And it's something that I do in every single interaction with my students. In fact, what I always tend to do is give them a 10 years ago Edwin. 10 years ago Edwin can tell them all of the mistakes that I made so that they know not to do that. Or even if they even if they do make those mistakes, they know how to get out of that. And so I believe the first step in any financial literacy curriculum or any financial literacy teaching is really to break down the stigmas that are associated with financial literacy. Allow yourself to be human and allow the students to allow themselves to be human and to ask the questions that you think should be known, because there, like I said, financial literacy is not a given. And just because one student, we have those students in the classroom, then I've had them in the class before, that they know about, they understand about investing or they understand about budgeting. So when I start talking about this, about these topics, they might not pay as much attention. But then there's going to be something that I say within the budgeting that they didn't know. Something about savings for 6 months, short term, or saving up for your personal expenses for 3 to 6 months. I've had students be like, that have told me, oh, I currently have stocks with Robinhood. Okay, awesome. What is your how much money do you have saved up already for the short term? Oh, no, that's my stocks. It's like, okay, well, if something were to happen, would you feel comfortable taking out that money that you're investing? Because this is something that's supposed to go long term. And so having these conversations with students allows them to really start thinking about their personal finance and encourages student engagement. And I think this is something that in particularly in synchronous and in-person classes is going to be helpful to allow the students to feel that what they're learning about financial literacy is important, but also it's going to take me a while to really get this. So let me start getting the basic tools now. Asynchronous classes, I will be providing videos and access to these interactive games where students will be able to at least have these conversations about their personal finance amongst them, like with themselves, and then interactive worksheets that will allow them to will allow you guys to see what type of questions they're having. So this is all coming in the works to support you guys. We're also going to be creating what Katie and I talked about is creating optional workshops for you guys where we can go over in more detail the type of activities that you can do in class to bring out more engagement from the students, to encourage you guys to talk about your personal journey in financial literacy, but also encourage the students to talk about it with you about what they're currently experiencing. An activity that as an example for something like this, that could be a professional development for you guys, would be when they're talking about personal finance in the Lumen Learning, where the financial wellness that they teach is good, but some students might not be able to identify goals that they have with such a short notice. Imagine being told, what are your goals right now for your financial plan? If you haven't really thought about it, it's going to take you a little while to kind of come up with anything to say so that you can be engaged in the activity. So imagine being a student that you're still trying to get introduced to a school and then asking them to establish a financial goal. They might not have engagement, and that's not going to be something that's to the detriment of what you're doing. It's just the student's not going to have time to think about that. So what we can do is really make it more personal and allow them to engage in it. So have the students map out their current college expenses for the first semester, and then have them individually update their information on an Excel budget sheet while they're mapping this out. So go ahead and map out your expenses on an Excel spreadsheet, put it underneath the column of expenses, and let's start there with step one. Then have them identify the indirect expenses that they have on a personal level, because not everybody's indirect expenses are going to be the same. Some students are going to have much more support from their family, while other students are going to be completely on their own. Have them identify those indirect expenses. Then we highlight RCC's affordability as compared to a traditional four-year university or a private four-year university, something that is covered within that that Lumen Learning itself. They have a short video that talks about the average cost of attendance in 2011. So it's important to highlight that because it is something where since then it's been updated significantly. Then from there, encourage them to have a conversation about the next steps that they would need to take to map out a good budget for the first semester. Once the students have the budget sheet created, you can assign them to track their budget for a week, for 2 weeks, for a month, however long you have with the students, and then come back and have a conversation about that budget sheet. And if for whatever reason there isn't the time for you guys to have that conversation, you can always direct them to me so that we can have a discussion based off of what they've done in the creation of the budget that they've made in class with you guys. So what I would like to support you. What I would like to do to support you guys is to create a workshop that I feel would help you guys to engage the students more in this, but also to allow the students to know the resources that are currently available. I would also like to help the professors by working this summer to line up a list of administrative staff that would be available to come to your classes in synchronous and in-person classes, and really engage the students in the resources that are available through RCC. So what does this mean? Currently with Jean underneath Title V, they have a lot of the directives for them is to really make students real world ready, but to really get to know more about the income that they could potentially earn from the careers that they're choosing. Federal work study is also a resource that's available to students if they're not currently working. So have somebody come in and explain what federal work study is and the benefits for them. Have financial aid come in and talk about the resources that are currently available through the FAFSA and the benefits of why submitting a FAFSA can at least give you access to the resources. Nothing has to be taken out unless you accept it. But if we have people coming in to explain this information, then students will know, okay, you know what, maybe I don't need to work 30 to 40 hours a week while I'm in school and then trying to pay everything with a credit card. Maybe it is good for me to see what's on the FAFSA to see what type of resources I can get. And I've mentioned this earlier, but this I feel is such a great opportunity for students is to know about the clubs that are currently on campus. So if you guys know of any additional clubs outside of the ones that I've mentioned before that you want to provide me with, it's better that I know all of the resources that students currently have. The fact that I learned about the Student Economic and Investment Club to me is a wonder because I think that is one of the more important things for students to learn while they're in college is how they can make their money grow so that they don't necessarily have to rely on just their salary making the only money for them. And so the fact that Natalia offers this club where students in the business school right now can go in there, they have a competition about aggressively investing their money, and they get hypothetical money to invest. So students don't take on any risk, but at the same time, they still get to see how the stock market works, how investing works, and allows them to really find new ways to make their money grow for them, even while they're in college. So if they have just $1,000 or $2,000 that's in savings and it's been getting 0.01% interest, maybe there's a way for you guys to practice now so that once you graduate, you can take those $1,000 and find new ways to make that money grow for you. And as well, I'm currently working with Our Money Matters, which is a HBCU and HSI benefit services under Wells Fargo, to get iGrad embedded in our financial literacy website for free, for students to have access to first establish what's called a money personality. It's this questionnaire where students will be able to learn more about how their spending habits are, how their saving habits are. But iGrad is really a good tool for education on financial literacy outside of the classroom. I've worked with it before in previous institutions, and I really like the benefit of the education that students can get. It allows them to go on there and do 10 to 15-minute exercises on financial literacy. It also allows them to have scholarship search services, and it really caters the work that they do to match the student's money personality. And so we're working right now to get that embedded within the financial literacy website so that you guys can also use that as a resource to you to help supplement some of the work that you'll be teaching these students. And lastly, as another way to help you guys with this is we are currently in the works of creating money mentors. Money mentors are going to, the one continuous narrative that I've heard is you need to be careful what you wish for, Edwin, because there are 50 different modules at any given time on financial literacy being taught in IttS, and there's one of you. So with Money Mentors, what we're working to do is try to get a series of students, and this is something that's been recommended by the SEC, to get peer-to-peer interaction. The SEC really does recommend that students get that peer-to-peer interaction so that they learn from a cohort of their own. And what the money mentors are going to be doing is they're going to take basically a month-long training session with me on financial literacy and then have them available at your disposal. We're hoping to get this launched by fall for presentations that we can do in class. I've done a presentation in the nursing school already for the ITTS, and I loved it. I felt that the students there were really interactive, and they really afterwards I've got a series of emails from them that either they were interested in becoming money mentors or were interested in learning more about how they can get their personal budget. So if we can get as many people out to do presentations in your ITTS class, not only does it take the burden away from you guys from having to always think of new ways to engage students, but it also allows the students to hear from their own information that is important for them to learn at an early phase in their college life. These mentors will be available to do presentations in synchronous and in-person classes, so that should help with those. It's just a matter of getting the scheduling right. And then again, as I stated, I will admit that my weak side right now is learning what I can do for asynchronous. I think videos are going to be something that will help the students engage, but I'm still trying to get a creative way of being able to provide something that students can do asynchronously that can help them to learn more about their personal finances and financial literacy. So that's what we're currently in. That's what we currently have in the works to help support you guys during this time. I'm more than welcome to any suggestions that you guys have. I open up the floor now to have a conversation with you all, as you guys are in the front lines. And one of the things that I always encourage is to have a cross collaboration with those that know more than me when it comes to what you guys are experiencing in your classrooms.
Awesome. Well, first of all, I hope we can all give Edwin a round of applause for thank you so much for all of that great information and for offering, your services to us. I mean, that's really, we need your expertise. So thank you so much for being here and for everything that you're bringing. I mean, we have never had anything like this, right? So there may be individual faculty members who have known a lot about these topics and have been able to share that with their students, but those of us who don't, what can we do, right? Except for saying, here it is in the book, and we don't really have much more than that. I also want to acknowledge that, we just heard a lot of information. And if you're feeling a little overwhelmed right now, that's okay, right? So none of us need to become experts in financial literacy. We have one, we have Edwin. And we have Edwin who's going to train some of our students to help us with that. And there are other people on campus who will help. So one of the things I want you all to know is that by no means do you need to feel like you have to become an expert on this, but there's going to be a lot of really great materials, resources, extra workshops your students can go to. And those are just going to be starting to come into the course this summer. So we're just at the beginning of this, right? We'll start doing some new things with financial literacy and financial management this fall, and then we'll continue to grow and we'll continue to improve on that as we get new resources and as we understand how our students are engaging with the ones we have, right? So that's kind of where we're at. And there's some great stuff happening in the chat. Emily wants to start investing. That's awesome. Kimberly is thinking about that payback game, which yes, I agree, could be so useful in the class. What questions do you all have for Edwin? Just go nuts.
Please, guys, I am here to answer whatever I can. And just so that you guys know, it's not just one game. There's also additional games that I have that can help students to manage how to live paycheck to paycheck, what that life really looks like. There are additional resources that I will be providing for you guys. And as Katie said, this is a lot of information to take all at once. I am one of these people that when I'm excited about something, I'm going to talk a lot. And I'm very excited about financial literacy. So if you guys are processing this and have questions later on, please feel free to always shoot me an email. But for right now, if you guys have any general questions or anything that you wish to state or comment on, I'm here for you guys.
Good job, Edwin. I look forward to seeing you in my class.
I look forward to being there, guys.
Absolutely.
And so to that point, Teresa's asking in the chat, do you make presentations to our classes? And the answer is yes, right? Edwin or someone else who is trained in this way will be able to do that, right?
Right. And just so that you guys know, I currently already have a presentation established for an ITTS class. It is going to be the introduction to budgeting, how to establish a bank account, something that is overlooked for a lot of our students that they might not even know how to set up a bank account, and then the basics of needs versus wants, because that's something where I think even as adults, we're still trying to really map out like what is the difference between something that I know I need to live and something that I just want? And it's such a hard conversation to have sometimes. So I have a great presentation on that, as well as I'm working on a presentation for the upcoming fall for a lot of the ITTS classes on credit and how to be a responsible borrower, which I think are two topics that are important for students to understand early on. How to establish a budget in your personal financing, along with a college checking or savings account, and then what is borrowing? Because now you're at the age where you can take out a credit card once you're 18. So it's important for students to understand those two topics.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah in the chat had a great suggestion about the asynchronous classes. And I know that was something that you were worried about. I agree. I think Sarah's right on, and you feel free to say more, Sarah, if you want. But we can have the students in asynchronous classes play the games as, you know, one or more of them as an activity, and then they have to write about it in a discussion board, right, in a discussion forum. That can be how the game is used in that format. So it still counts, it's still graded, it's still part of what we expect from them. Sarah, did you want to say anything more about that idea?
No, I was just thinking that, you know, I had somebody in my ITTS course when they did their Focus 2 assessment, and I forget, they got two outrageous results. They were in the nursing program. I think one was like a casino worker, and the other one was also something completely. And, you know, they were emailing back and forth to me, but I was like, but this is a great topic for conversation. So, you know, even though, you know, I think to engage the students in discussion, some of these games and what did you think and what, you know, what were you surprised about, or you know, will elicit a good discussion even in that asynchronous format. So I think it's a good, you know, topic for a week when we are talking about financial literacy, because it makes it a more fun conversation. And I think that students, you know, they might be surprised by what they found out, and be eager to kind of share what they, you know, what they discovered, or what they were, you know, surprised about. So.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I actually love the suggestion, Sarah. That wasn't something that I was thinking about, but now that you said it, makes all the sense in the world. It's very obvious just to have students do games and then have a discussion or post. Because ultimately that's what we really do want, is for students to have fun when it comes to financial literacy. Because it's kind of hard to look in the mirror and have that conversation with yourself if you don't know how to start that conversation. So thank you for that.
That's great. This is great ideas. And that's what we need. You know, you all are a really creative bunch, and we just need to keep having these great ideas, and then share them, and then try them and see how it goes, and then change them if necessary, right? What other questions do folks have, or comments for Edwin?
Edwin, I have a question. How long is the financial literacy presentation?
So for the
how to work it in.
Yeah, understandable. For the introduction or the ITTS courses, I try to keep them under 30 minutes. It's something that I've said ever since my interview process. When you talk about financial literacy with students, they do tend to get glossed over if you give them way too much information. Now today with you guys, I unloaded everything because you guys you guys have earned the fact that you can get all this information at once. But with students, I like to take baby steps. And like I said, it's a work in progress. So right now, I have two different sets of presentations for the same presentation. I have a 30-minute one for ITTS, but then I also have an hour-long one that includes more activities and more engagement. So really, I can cater it to what you want to do in your classroom. If it's something where you have them for an hour and you want me to take that full hour to really get them to practice their budgeting techniques, I have a presentation built out for that. But if you need me to do just a shorter thing, I got that as well.
I like the engagement.
I'm flexible for you guys. I know that you guys know your class better than I would.
Right.
Excellent. What else? Other questions for Edwin?
So I don't actually have a question, but I just kind of wanted to like plant a seed while we're all here talking about financial stuff. I've been working on the Accelerated Pathways project where we're bringing the ITTS courses to the high schools, and that's been really, really fun. I've been training the faculty, but something that they've brought up as we're talking about personalized education plan and the FAFSA a lot, and they said, okay, this is great, but we have a lot of undocumented students, and what do we do with them? And I just think maybe we don't have the answers right now, but it's something I want us to all be thinking about. One, so that we're being inclusive of those students who are like, hey, my family and I can't fill out this FAFSA. What do I do for aid? But also, you know, so that we're not blindsided if they do come to us. So it's just something that I kind of wanted to bring up while we're all here.
And thank you so much for that, Emily. Just to let you know, I have had experience in my previous institutions working with undocumented students. So I've had these conversations before with them. It is a little bit of a tougher conversation just because the resources are limited. However, it is something where, and even in the work that you guys are doing right now with taking ITTS to the high schools, I feel is very important, because it allows them to get exposed to the material earlier than the college life, which is really good to help really plant that seed and watch it grow. But with undocumented students, if it's something where you would like to see an additional presentation or an additional sort of resources for workshops for them, just let me know. And it's something that I can work with, as I've had that conversation before. It's harder for them to find those additional resources, and a lot of time they are more hesitant to say information because of everything that happened in the past with being an undocumented student and how we've seen the shift in our society. But it is something that I agree, it's important to keep them in mind, and it is something that I have in mind for them, as well as for international students and as well as for our adult students. We have so many different populations here at Rockland Community College. So just know that it is on my radar for them.
And I
Okay.
think, Emily, I'm so glad you asked that question, because I think that also helps us understand how to present this to the students, right? To acknowledge that when we're presenting this, to not, for example, bully everybody into filling out the FAFSA, because not everybody can, right? And it's not just our undocumented students, it's also, as Edwin just said, our international students. And so, to make sure that we're presenting as many resources as possible without sort of making assumptions that could isolate or alienate some of our students. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it was something that it came up while we were looking at the personalized education plan, because we have a question on there that's like, hey, did you apply for financial aid through the FAFSA? And some students are going to stare at that question and be like, for any of these reasons that we're mentioning.
Right. That's absolutely 100% true. Correct.
Yeah, great point. And just being sensitive to that. Awesome questions. What else do you have for Edwin? Any other questions or comments or thoughts? While you're thinking, I just want to acknowledge a couple things. So first of all, this is my blind spot, my own personal teaching blind spot. And the reason for that is that I have a great deal of privilege, because my parents paid for my college education. And, I didn't ever have to, I was able to grab some scholarships and help out a little bit, but I never had to apply for financial aid. And I don't really know, I've learned a little bit over the years, but I don't really know how it works. And I didn't have a lot of the pressures that our students have. And so I just want to acknowledge that for some of us, we don't know anything about this, right? And that's okay. We don't have to be the experts. We have people who will help us. And what's going to happen going forward is that you all, as you prepare to teach this course in the fall, you're going to get a course that will have more materials in it. So you'll have more resources. You'll have, workshops that you can direct the students to. There's going to be a lot that you're given, and then a lot of other things you can go and find out and learn about if you want to. So that's how this is going to work. You're going to be supported. And we know that for some of you, it's going to be a big leap to try to teach this in slightly different ways, or to use some of these resources that you're not familiar with. And that's okay. The important thing is that this really matters for our students, because how we retain our students and how we make sure they're successful absolutely connects to whether or not they can finance their education. If they can't pay to be here, then we're going to lose them, right? And that's, nothing else we do will matter. So that's why this is so important. And I'm really, really excited that we have these great resources, but also wanting you all to know that when I look at this, I feel nervous because it's a steep learning curve for me. So if you're feeling nervous too, that's okay, right? We will learn together. We will figure this out together. And we have an expert who is amazing, and other experts as well on campus. So before we sort of switch topics to talking about other ways in which the course may change going forward, in addition to having all these great other resources about financial literacy, are there any other questions or thoughts for Edwin right now? Remember, you can always send him an email. So. Anything else? Okay, Edwin, would you mind putting your email in the chat? That would be awesome.
We're doing right now. And thank you so much, guys, for taking the time out to allow me to talk today. I do want to let you guys know that my email is always open if you guys have any questions. If there is like a sense of anxiety around teaching this individual topic, or anything that has to do with financial literacy, please reach out to me. I am like a cuddly teddy bear, guys. I am here to listen to what you guys got to tell me, and here to help you guys out. Okay.
Now, I
Fantastic.
just have a quick question. Are you going to be sending links out to us to the games, or how are we going to get access to these resources to put them in our courses?
Yes, if you have something that you guys would like, just let me know. And I'm sure, Katie, if there's a way to send me like the emails of everybody here, I can always send out resources as well as additional suggestions.
Yeah, and that's actually a great segue to what we're gonna do next. So yes, absolutely. You know, we'll have Edwin send out to this whole group, everybody teaching the course in the fall, lots of resources. But what we're also hoping to do, and this is something that the deans and I are hoping to do, is we are actually going to adjust the master classes before they get pushed out to you in late July. So what does that mean? In case you don't know what on earth I just said, there are 6 master courses in Blackboard, 1 for each school and 1 for the honors program. And those are the courses that last summer, if you were with us last summer, as many of you were, and you got the course, you had that master course already there, right? It was populated with the curriculum. It had some extra links and resources in a few of the modules. It had, you know, a couple other links and resources in course information, and it sort of was delivered to you. Now, many of you have made modifications to that. You added things, you put discussion boards in. That's great. What we will do is, you know, you're going to have essentially the option of either just duplicating your course and going forward with that for the future, or, you know, you'll have this new course that you can then populate with some of your resources in the past. So we are going to make sure that you have multiple ways of accessing these resources, so that, you know, when you're going there in the fall for your first day, you are equipped with everything that's new and necessary. So any questions about that? That's a great segue. The deans and I are working on that. Okay. All right. So let's talk about some of the other, what I'm going to do is, let me see. Let me just share this slide really, really quickly, and then I'll actually end up sharing something else. Okay. So I just want to, I'll put it in presentation mode. I just want to talk a little bit about some of the modifications that we're seeing coming down the pike, so to speak. First of all, new student orientation. What we would like is for new student orientation to be a link in all of your courses. And again, we'll make that happen. There is, if you are teaching IttS 101, the School for Education and Social Science, Dr. Bridgelaw has told you that new student orientation, which is totally asynchronous right now, that's actually going to be a graded part of your course. It's a pilot program that we're experimenting with, okay? That's only true for IttS 101. Only in those courses is the new student orientation going to be a graded part of the course. So the idea is the students have to complete it, and that factors into their final grades for IttS 101. But for the rest of us, we'd like to have that link in your course so that students, you know, even if it's not graded, that's okay, right? But just so that students know that they need to complete it, because we really, really want them to complete that and have that knowledge as soon as possible when they set foot on campus. So let me pause there to see first if there are any questions about that. Okay, obviously we hope that they do it before they show up, right? We all hope that they do new student orientation before they ever enter your classroom, but we know that doesn't happen necessarily. So that's why we're going to put it in every course. With ESS courses, it's going to be a graded piece, and we'll see how that works, right? And if that turns out to be really, really helpful, then we'll have to consider, you know, we'll consider other options for the other schools. Any questions on that? Okay. So then a couple other modifications that are happening. The Focus to Career reflection assignment. So I want to first talk about Focus 2 and then the reflection assignment. Focus to Career is another thing that should be done before the students ever enter your class. Last year, this is not what happened, right? And so what happened is that when your students entered ITTS, most of them had not done Focus 2, which meant that they had to do it right away, and that added a lot of pressure on them at the beginning of the course. So we're thinking about, you know, 2 ways to try to not make that happen for most of your students. The first thing is our advisors are trying really hard to get the students to do it during the summer. The second thing is that I'm gonna write an email for all of you to send out as a Blackboard announcement. And of course you can tweak it if you want, but your class opens a week before the start of the semester, right? So if you're teaching in the fall, your class is gonna open 1 week before the fall begins. And if you can then send out this email that I'm going to give to you, or as a Blackboard announcement, or however you want to do it, that will sort of push your students toward new student orientation and toward Focus 2, to try to get them to do those two things before they ever enter your course. So that's one thing that we're going to do right away. But if they don't take it before they enter your course, then yes, they will need to do those assessments, right? And so one of the things you can do is right away be sort of pushing that and saying, have you done this already? If not, can you do it right away in the first week of school before everything starts to get very overwhelming? Of course, the first week is overwhelming in its own way, but usually in the workload, it isn't quite so overwhelming immediately. So those are a couple things we're trying to do to get students to go through new student orientation and do Focus 2 career right away. Any questions on that?
Katie, it's Cheryl Iorio. I don't have a question. I think I just wanted to make a comment. Just for me, it was the logon was an issue. Like it wasn't the location of the Focus 2 or the actual assignment, but some of my students were delayed because of the logon or some, I don't know, password or logon or something. So
Yeah, there's a code, and I'll put it in the chat. The code that they need is pathways. What I can do is I can see if there's any way to take that. I'm not sure there's a way to take that out of our Focus 2 experience, but let me ask. Christina Chaudel is one of the people who works on that in our advisement office. Xenia, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that I was able to review how to get to the Focus 2, and the password is on the web page right under the link. So what I would do is actually show where they can find the Focus 2. I had the link of the page sent to them via email, so they knew exactly where to go. And sometimes, because I did it in person, I would just do it right on the computer with them. And so being able to model how to get to it, showing them where the password was, and sometimes even emailing it to them, make sure you get this done, was a way to reinforce it. But it's on the website. There's a link, and then it says password is pathways. And then it kind of explains what it is. But yeah, that question did come up. What is Focus 2? What is this, et cetera? So being able to help them navigate to that space was really important during the class time, because sometimes we know our students didn't check their emails, they're just getting acclimated. So being there in that space and actually showing them how to do it, giving them time to become acquainted, I believe was helpful.
Great. I mean, thank you so much, Xenia. I think that really helps. And if anyone else has helpful tips like that about any of these topics, please bring them forward. I mean, that's really great. I think doing it with your students in some way, whether it's synchronously, whether it's, helping them see it asynchronously in some way, right? Screenshots, something like that. There are tutorials that we can, put you in touch with for sure. Our advisement folks will help us with that. Any other thoughts on Focus 2 and strategies you found that helped your students do it? Okay, again, we're going to keep trying, right? We're going to keep trying these strategies for getting new student orientation done and Focus 2 done before the students ever enter the class. But we appreciate also that this is almost a safety net in a way. Oh, then I see something's in the chat. Oh, thank you so much, Xenia, for putting the link in there. That's wonderful. Really appreciate that. That link has the password, so that's really helpful. And Cheryl, I appreciate that you mentioned that. It is a barrier to our students, right? They have to put that in. Okay. We are going to look at the Focus 2 reflection assignment, and we're going to look at a revised draft of the personalized education plan as a Google Doc. And I'll explain more about that in a few minutes when we do that. But I actually just want to focus on the other things on this page right now while we're here. So first of all, at this point, I believe that most of the deans, and we will confirm this with you, but I believe that most of the deans have signed on to decrease the weight of the personalized education plan to not 30%, but to 20%. Now, why would we do something like that? well, we know that the PEP is really important, right? We want a student to leave this course having a plan, so that, I mean, you know, the dream, the ideal, the sort of, you know, platonic ideal here is that you could walk onto campus and ask any first year student after their first semester, right, what's your plan? And they would be able to tell you, or to show you. That would be the ideal. Now, okay, we're probably never going to reach the ideal, but we want this to happen. And one thing we noticed is that a fair number of students, because that plan is sort of later in their course and they were starting to feel a little overwhelmed, they didn't necessarily do the plan, or they didn't fully complete it. And in those cases, what would happen is the student would then maybe get a failing grade or a very low grade for the plan, and they wouldn't be able to pass the course because it was worth 30%. So what we've thought about doing is basically reducing the weight to 20% so that it's still really important, but it's not a complete, you know, if a student gets a low grade on that, they aren't completely sunk. That's sort of our rationale. But I want to pause and see what you all think of this, and whether you agree, disagree, have some other ideas, thoughts. Okay. Okay, if you think of any, you know, let me know. But I think that is likely to happen going forward. And again, we'll communicate that with you. The deans, we're still discussing. So a couple ongoing questions. First of all, and I'm going to run through these questions and then we'll talk about each in turn. Should any modules be made optional? By which I mean, we could make certain modules optional and actually let them be extra credit for students who maybe didn't do so well in other parts of the course, or just simply optional. So that's something to consider. How should we best aggregate creative lesson plans? So by now, a bunch of you have done really, really cool things, which we've heard a little bit about today, right? And we've heard about it in the past as well. Let's collect those. Is Google Drive the right place for that, do you think? Is there a better spot? So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you have a question about how you can get a peer mentor for the class? We have many folks in our Title V team here today, and Title V really was instrumental in helping with the peer mentors and making that happen. We also have a few of you who use peer mentors in your classes, and for most of you, it was a really good experience from what I've heard. So you may be curious about that, and I want to open the space to talk about that. And then also, you know, what else do you need to be successful this fall? So where I would like to start is actually with the question Shaquana just put in the chat. Our transition to Microsoft, as I understand it, has no impact on Google Drives, Google Doc, Google Sheets, any of that. The only impact is on Gmail. Is that correct to everybody else's knowledge? Does anybody know something different from that? Okay, I believe, I'm almost positive, Shaquana, that we will still have access to all of those other things, just we're not using Gmail. All right, so then Sarah has been amazing with our peer mentors. Sarah has has worked with peer mentors, and she put in the chat that peer mentors have been great. Sarah, I'm gonna kind of put you on the spot here. Feel free to just tell me to go away, but do you want to talk a little bit about your experience with peer mentors? That would be great if you wouldn't mind.
I've had a great experience with peer mentors, but both semesters, and I've been lucky to work with two really great peer mentors. And we met on a weekly basis, and some of the things that we did, both times it was an asynchronous course, you know, so I wanted the peer mentor to be as involved as possible. So for each semester, they did at least one kind of individual project where they created some type of additional support information. So the first semester, they created a fantastic tour of campus, since a lot of students had never been on campus. So John actually filmed himself going through the entire campus, describing where things were located, what services were provided there, giving links that students might be interested in. So that was a great thing that he created. And then in the spring, Ashley, I think she had started it with you, put together a great presentation with PowerPoints and, you know, her talking about the experience with looking to transfer, what it was like, when do you start, you know, what do you need to consider? And she even went into the financial considerations, Edmonds, you'll be happy to hear, and talked a little bit about what she had learned in the transfer process. which was really great. So we posted that for students. So, as the students create these, it's great to now, I'm rolling them over with their permission into the next semester and next semester. So, and it's optional, but it's a great way to say, like, welcome to your students. The other idea that I actually got recently from doing one of our professional development trainings through SUNY, which I had never really thought of doing before, was for me, the instructor, to videotape a welcome message for my asynchronous course. And I'll be honest, I never did that before. But I was thinking, as we were talking about the difficulty with Focus 2, that would be a great opportunity to introduce yourself and then maybe say, share your screen, make a little video clip of yourself in Zoom and say, this is where it is. This is, how you find it. And then my peer mentors also, each semester we did set up meetings. So we would have like office hours for their peer mentors, and I would be there as well, where students could drop by if they had questions. And even though it was asynchronous, they wanted like some face-to-face interaction, and a lot of them really enjoyed that. And then I had them come up and they kind of helped monitor the discussion questions as well and came up with their own questions. And then we made it very clear that the students could reach out to them as a resource. And a lot of questions students maybe felt silly asking their instructor, they felt more comfortable asking the peer mentors. So we had like a, what do you wish you know kind of ongoing discussion throughout the semester, where students could always pop in there and ask John or Ashley, information, and other students would share and help each other out. And then, the mentors would do it. So I've found them to be a fantastic resource. And I hope I get another one in the fall. I don't want to teach without them, because now I've had such good experiences. So I think it's been, a really positive experience. And I would love to look at data. I would love to compare how the students felt in courses that had a peer mentor versus courses that didn't, to really look at, what a benefit it is. So.
That's a great idea. Sarah, thank you so much for sharing that. I should have asked you to do that like before this meeting. And so I totally just put you on the spot, and I really appreciate that you shared that. There's also some great stuff happening in the chat. Kay also had a peer mentor and mentions that the peer mentor put a WhatsApp group together to help the students, which is lovely. I mean, I think it's actually really empowering for our students to have these little groups that we're not a part of, where they are all a part of it and they're helping each other. That's really nice. Any questions or thoughts about peer mentors? Well, we've got a few experts here who used them. I always feel bad putting it that way, but who were able to work with them. Yeah. Kay, did you want to say more?
Well, my peer mentor, I had one, and she was great, and she came into several classes, some students really liked to ask her questions. I think peer, the more stuff we can do amongst peers and have peer mentors, I think the better, because students, as Sarah said, they'll ask a fellow student a question that they might not feel comfortable asking a professor. So I think peer mentors are great. And I didn't do as much with my peer mentor as Sarah did, but that's some great ideas, Sarah. And going forward, I'm going to try and incorporate some of those ideas that you did, because that sounds fantastic.
Great, thank you so much. Emily, this is an awesome suggestion that you just put in the chat. Do you want to say a little bit more about that? And actually, Emily, if you want, again, not to put you on the spot, but if you want to say a little bit about what's going on in the high school, that might be interesting for our group to hear, if you feel like it.
Yeah, sure. So I did I had a peer mentor once, and it was for a synchronous course, and she was wonderful, but I do think that I could have done better using like her knowledge in more ways. So I'm looking forward to learning and perhaps working with another peer mentor in the future. But the comment that I had just put in the chat was that when I was talking to, because we're going to place peer mentors in the high school courses as well. And some of the teachers had suggested that we have our peer mentors record videos of themselves breaking down the process of, like, say, okay, pick one assignment that you completed in college that you did really well on, that you got an A, or that you felt you were successful at, and have them break down, what it felt like, what the planning process was like, what completing it was like, how they were assessed, and just breaking down like, here's how it went, and I was successful. Because of course our ITTS students, particularly Flex 1, this is all new to them and it's scary. And of course for our high school students that I'll now be working with, it's extra scary for them. They think college, so if you're able to say, hey, I just did this last semester and I did really well on it, and this is what it felt like, it could sort of help bridge that gap a little bit. But in terms of accelerated pathways, we've been doing lots of training. We're now working with 3 high schools in Rockland, which is really exciting. And I'm very excited about it, clearly, but we've been having lots of meetings, and it's been teaching me things about how I might change how I approach the course with the college students. I brought up the suggestion before, and they've given me a few other ones, but we have one of the high schools is embedding ITTS into an English 101-098 course, which is really cool. So we'll see how that goes, because we're targeting the students specifically that we'd like to work with, students who are typically underrepresented and such. So that's going to be really cool. We have 2 of the other schools are making it more of a business financial literacy course. So Edwin, I'm sure I'll be calling on you very soon for some suggestions. But so we have different models happening right now. One is going to be a semester, one's going to be a full year. So we'll have lots of data, hopefully, that will help us understand our own ITTS courses better too.
Yeah, this is a really exciting initiative. And again, something else that, Emily's being very humble right now, which is very Emily, but it's something that's it's something that SUNY is also paying attention to, and even some entities outside of SUNY are very interested in these ways that we are experimenting with having a college success course happen in high school. Some of these students who are going to take this course are as young as 9th graders, right? And they're already thinking about, how do I succeed as a college student? How do I, plan to pay for that? I mean, that's really, really exciting. We have no idea how it's going to work. It's a brand new experiment. We have no data yet, but there have been so many meetings. There's been a lot of really great, interest from multiple high schools, not just one in the county. And again, this is a part of this larger project that you're all a part of. So really appreciate that. Are there any questions about peer mentors or the high school program or anything like that just came up? Okay, again, we'll push out information about how to get all of these things. So, after it probably won't be today, because I have literally 5 hours of back-to-back meetings today, but it will be some other time later this week that you will get an email from me with all kinds of resources and materials and follow-up and a recording to this. So there will be plenty of information coming. You don't have to take copious notes right now. Okay. One thing that I do think we could do, just to come back to the how do we share information effectively, I think what may happen is that I will reorganize the Google Drive that I've already shared with you all, so that there is one folder per module, and so that you can upload any great materials, activities, resources, anything like that that has to do with that module into the drive. And then we can all have access to that. I think that would probably be easiest. I'll also create a drive for the peer mentors. So what that will mean is, if, for example, Sarah, the great video that John made, we can put that in there. The great PowerPoint that Ashley made, we can put that in there, right? And with their permission, of course, to share with other classes. And then any other work that's done in the future with peer mentors, we can also put up there. Does that seem the best way, or does somebody have a better suggestion for how to share these resources effectively between us?
Great idea.
Okay. Okay. If you think of something, let me know. Oh, please, Kate, go ahead. Did you want to?
No, I just was muting myself.
Okay, I get it. Something we won't have to do soon. I'm already planning jokes about asking my in-person students to turn their cameras on in spring 2022. Anyway. So, okay, let's move now, and we're going to try to get out of here early if we can, but I do want to move over to just show you a few more things. So first of all, 14 of you were generous enough to take this, this survey for us, and I wanted to share the results with all of you so that we can open some conversations about what material from this course may or may not become optional. So I sent this out a couple times last month. If you didn't get a chance to take it, please don't worry. There's so much going on, okay, not to worry. But it was a short survey that had a few provocative questions. The first is, which modules would you be in favor of removing from the curriculum? an overwhelming response was don't take anything out, right? Now, we can certainly talk about this. There were a few people who had some thoughts, but it was only one vote for each of these, right? So the overwhelming response was don't take anything out of the course. Where I think things get a little more interesting is which module or modules would you be in favor of making optional within the course? Now, again, there was still the strongest response here that all modules should remain required. But we did have some folks chiming in. We had 3 votes, 3 out of 14. So just remember that's your N, right? Your main number here. 3 who said we could make motivating success optional, 3 who said we could make thinking and analysis optional, and 3 who said we could make beyond the classroom optional. There were one vote for health and 1 vote for learning styles and strategies. What I really want to do here is give us some time to talk about this question. Does anybody have more thoughts about this, about possibly making some of these modules optional, especially if we're maybe going to be spending additional time with financial management, with all these great resources that Edwin is going to share with us?
Well, it's interesting because like learning styles and strategies, I think is actually something that's very important for students to understand. However, as somebody who teaches our fundamentals course for nursing, one of the first things we do with our students is have them take an assessment and talk about this. So I'm not sure, maybe people feel that their schools are addressing this in other areas and that's why it's not important, or do people just think that it's not that relevant, that maybe students already understand what works best for them? So I'm not sure. It depends on where this answer is coming from, I think. I do think that it's something that maybe could be optional, because maybe some students do feel comfortable, and maybe it could be presented as, if you're not sure, the best strategies, because we do have students that reach out and say, they'll come to see me during office hours, like, how do I study? Like, this is what I'm doing. What can I do better, or what strategies? So I think it's something that people are interested in, but maybe some people feel pretty comfortable with their whatever strategies they've developed at the, up into this point. So I'm not sure if it's something that necessarily needs to be mandatory.
I would just like to, I don't want to contradict you, Sarah.
No, please do, Kay.
It's okay, yeah.
I'm just from, nursing students are awesome. I mean, all students are awesome. I teach some 101 type gen eds, and I must say that I have a lot of students that have no idea, are not comfortable in their learning strategies and don't have them. So for me, it's important that we go over some of that, because having somewhere quiet to study and all those things that people that are successful already kind of know and understand and take for granted, but some of the students as they come in, especially some of the underrepresented groups, they do need some sort of discussion here. So I would definitely have it in my ITTS classes.
Great. This is great. I mean, it's really important to hear all the thoughts. It's okay for us to disagree with each other. It's totally fine. And you're right. We're seeing potentially a difference in the kind of students here. The other thing, and someone who knows more about psychology than I do can please correct me if I'm wrong. One thing to note is that goal setting and time management and study skills, everybody who took this survey thought that those should remain required, right? Learning styles and strategies, though, there's actually, as I understand it, some pushback from psychologists about learning styles and whether they're even real, or whether there's something we've kind of made up. So, that's interesting to me. Doesn't mean we should take it out, because it could still be useful for students to help them figure out how they best learn. But maybe there's some overlap, or maybe we think that it's okay to make this optional. The other thing to remember is that each of these courses is different, right? And the courses may become more and more, slightly more different over time. So one thing that I would suggest is that if you strongly believe that certain modules should be optional, please let your dean know that. And also if you can CC me, that would help, just so that I have a general awareness of what's going on. That would really be useful at this point. But I would, come to your dean if you think, for example, I mean, Kimberly's comment is a great one. Maybe we don't need thinking and analysis, right? Maybe we can get rid of that one, or make that optional. Those thoughts that you have as you're considering, maybe as you're going back and looking over the course again, share them with your deans and with me, because it could help us take a little bit of pressure off the students. Are there other thoughts here? Go ahead.
Sorry, you mentioned the pressure on the students. There were, I think I'm trying to recall if it was the Beyond the Classroom module, but I do recall a couple of moments where some of these modules were so far ahead of where the students were at themselves that it caused anxiety for them. And so that would be my only other thought on making some of these optional, is some of them actually overwhelmed and intimidated some of the students when, they just weren't ready to be thinking about those things. So, I mean, at minimum, I'd say keeping a monitor, a barometer on the students and how they're responding, and maybe some of the emotional and psychological reactions. Because there were a couple of students who started to kind of shut down once we went into some of the modules that just felt so far away from where they were at, especially the early and mid high school students who just weren't ready to be that far ahead, thinking that far ahead.
Well, that's really helpful, Rachel. I really appreciate knowing that. I think what I'd ask you all to do, I guess, is to just think about it, and if you can, maybe within the week, or by next week, if you can, send some thoughts to your dean and CC me, because again, each dean may end up making a different decision here about what counts as optional. We may also let you make the decision. I think it's a little unclear what the deans are going to want to do. We have this information, and I'll share that with you, but I think certainly we need to keep talking about it.
Katie, I had an interesting thing, and I don't know where it would be addressed. I had several students who really didn't understand what an asynchronous class was. Mm-hmm. And I think that's before, or I don't know where we catch them in that, because like I had a few students who, one who really struggled in the class, and they kept, well, I don't understand. When are we meeting? Well, when are we, so I think some of these really new students who, hopefully maybe the high school, will help to, address this, or, registration. I don't know where we catch them, so that students know that when they're signing up for an asynchronous course, like it's asynchronous.
Yeah.
And that seemed to be an issue for a few students.
That's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, because by the time you get them, they're in your course and it's asynchronous. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that seems to me like a bit of more of an advisement question, but not sure. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, I had three students in my online summer one class who just never ever showed up, and that was an asynchronous class, and so I still don't. I mean, the class finishes this week, and I still don't know why they didn't show up. So that might have been their problem. They might not have even realized that it was, what they'd signed up for, possibly.
And I had the opposite. I was teaching an in-person, and many of them didn't realize they'd signed up for an in-person class.
That happened to me too.
Interesting. Yeah. Maybe, I'll make a note to mention that to Joe Falco, and just say that, to ask a little bit what's going on with that, not in a mean way, but just to say, are there resources that we can help point our students to about what each of these classes mean? Yeah. I'm also seeing some great stuff in the chat about, it looks like a few of you are saying that the thinking and analysis module could be optional, and also potentially the Beyond the Classroom module. Those, I'm going to say this. I agree with you. I don't think my opinion is special in any way, but I just happen to agree. I think that those two modules are the ones that make the most sense to actually make optional. So I'll pass all this information along to the deans, and we'll see what happens. But please do chime in with any other information. Shaquan is telling me that the kinds of classes, right, the types of different classes should be covered in advisement or new student orientation. Yes, obviously we hope that's happening. It could also be that that will be done more effectively this summer as opposed to last summer when there was still so much chaos. So we will keep hoping, but I'll also follow up with Joe. I just wanted to show you all this question real quick. The personalized education plan was worth 30% of a student's final grade. Should it remain at 30%, be reduced to 20, and then a couple other answers here. What you see is that a lot of the people who responded to the survey agree that it should be reduced to 20%. Some did believe it should remain at 30. We'll let you know what the deans decide. I do think they're leaning toward reducing it, as I mentioned earlier, so I just wanted to give you a heads up. And then there's some great information about, extra ideas that people had who wanted to chime in. If you have other ideas for how you think the course should be revised, please let me know. Please let your dean know. And again, I will share this. I've put, there's a spreadsheet that gets automatically generated by this little button. I will share the spreadsheet with you. It doesn't look as pretty as this, so I might screenshot this as well for you all, but you'll have this information in case you want it in some way. And thank you for everyone who decided to chime in on that. The other things I'm going to do, because I really would like us to, you all have been very patient and very participatory, and I appreciate that. I know we've got a lot going on. I have made a few modifications based on your feedback to the Focus 2 career assignment. Mostly the modifications involve asking the question why here. So for example, look back at your personality assessment. What is accurate about your results? What is inaccurate? Why? To encourage students to do a little bit more, like just instead of having 1 or 2 word answers. And then I've also added a recommended length to their answer. So for example, 2 sentences minimum, right? Not showing them that they don't need to write a novel here, but they do need to like give us some explanation. I would love, that's really all I've done is sort of insert the word why when appropriate. I appreciate everybody who gave feedback on this because your feedback is directly responsible for these changes. What I will also do is I will share this with you. And if you have any comments or any other modification suggestions, you can let me know. But anything that comes up right now with the Focus 2 career reflection. I saw I got Emily's seal of approval on the changes, which is whoo, whoo. Any other thoughts on this right now as you're looking at it real quick? Okay, and then the other thing that I'm going to share with you, and this is probably going to involve more. So again, I want you to, take, if you want to, again, optional, take the time to read through the revised personal education plan, offer any suggestions that you have. But I do want to call your attention to a couple of things. So first of all, we are moving away from this being a Google form. The reason for that is that the Google form is very static, right? A student fills it out, and then they get a sort of an email from Gmail, right? They get an email that comes to them that says, these are your results. They can't go back and modify those results, right? It's a very static kind of thing. What we would like to do is to turn this into like a living document for the students. And I'm going to tip my hand a little bit and tell you like the big picture would be that they could actually work on this in a future class, in a different class down the road, right? Like, for example, I'll throw out English. What if in English 102 or in English 101, even at the end, every student, pulled out their plan and worked on it a little bit or reflected on it in some way as a writing assignment? We could make that happen. We could make that happen in other classes too. So we want this to be something that is more alive and can be revised by them as opposed to just a static email that they got once from Google Forms. And thank you, Emily, that's amazing. What I've done is I've basically translated the document from a Google form to a doc. There are a few things that happen when you do this, which are a little bit problematic. So I have made sure that I've added a recommended sentence lengths here. Some of this is really easy. The problem is when you get down to a question like this, what kinds of extracurricular options will help you make progress towards your education and career goals while you are at RCC? Select all that apply by changing the text color of each applicable option to red, right? This is my idea, and I want you to tell me if I'm crazy, okay? Because what happened in the form is that this was check boxes, right? They would check all that applied, but you can't do that, as far as I know, tell me if I'm wrong, in a Google Doc. So my idea was, change the, if you want to join an RCC club, change the font to red, right? Is there a better way to do something like this in a Google Doc?
Why can't we make it a Microsoft Word document?
Would that help, Meg? Help me
Yeah, because
understand that.
you could use checkboxes. Like, then it's not a problem. They could just check it off still.
You can actually put, and you can't do that in a
Yes.
Google Doc?
I don't know Google Docs well enough, but I think it is limited there. But Microsoft Word has that capability. So just a thought.
Okay, thank you. I did not know that about Microsoft Word. That is awesome. Let me look into whether checkboxes, can we do this in Google Docs? Okay. The reason, by the way, why, and I understand we may want to switch over to Microsoft Word. I mean, obviously our students are going to get access to Microsoft very easily now that we are going to have that. What I understand though is that they still have Google Docs and G Suite from the county, like that's what the local high schools use. Is that right? Does anybody know that for sure? My understanding is the public high schools use G Suite.
The ones that I've been working with recently do. I don't know if that means everyone does, but.
Okay, and Teresa's saying yes. Yeah, thank you. So, we'll see if we can't make it work in Google Doc, if there isn't a checkbox option. Maybe, Meg, I really appreciate that suggestion. We can move it over to Microsoft Word. It's something obviously our students will have access to. The reason I was trying to stick with Google Docs is just for that continuity, for high school. But this is great.
Hello?
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Hello? Oh, hi.
Oh, I think
Can I get the
Sean is
classic
not
chicken
meaning
sandwich?
to be. Hang on one second. Let me
I just
fix that.
want the sandwich.
Okay, we're good. I hope that Sean has a good breakfast or lunch or whatever it is. All right. So I will work on that. There are, just to let you know, when I share this with you, things to look at that are new. So Edwin has been wonderful enough to propose some extra questions. And they are, and I've sort of embedded them in the document, and I'll let you know which ones they are so that you can sort of focus some of your attention on those as you're thinking about possible revisions to this. The first is, have personal finances ever been a factor when considering your educational goals? This is an easy question, yes or no, right? But then the next one is, what is the Rockland Community College cost of attendance for the upcoming year? That actually forces them to go do some research. Some of you may have actually done this activity with your class. I know that I did, where we actually went to RCC's page and looked at the tuition and the fees and all of that stuff, and we actually looked at it. So that's a good way for them to sort of to make sure they understand what the cost is. And then we have our standard, have you applied for financial aid? But also, this was a question that Edwin put in here. What resources are you currently using to help fund your college costs? So what I'll do is I'll share this document with you. You can add all your comments. It will be great to hear what you think. And then we will put out a finalized version of this for your students. We're also going to make sure that we put that document in right away in the course instead of waiting until later to add it. Because I think one thing that happened to a lot of students is that they got toward the end of the course and they got overwhelmed and they didn't do a good job on the PEP as a result. Whereas if we'd had this for them a little bit earlier, if they'd been able to engage with it a little earlier, maybe that would have been more successful for them. So those are just some thoughts, but any other ideas about anything that I've said about the suggested changes to focus to reflection, to the PEP itself, anything else that we've talked about today that you want to either ask a question about or have a last word on? Okay. Well, again, so look for a follow-up email from me by the end of this week. It'll have lots of material in it. If you want to ignore it, that's totally okay. You can ignore it. If you want to, suggest revisions and offer ideas to your dean and to me, that would be great. But really, it's so important that we not burn out. And if you are feeling burned out already, I hear you. And I think we all need to give ourselves a break and recharge so that we can come back in the fall and do this even better than we did last fall. And I'm just so grateful to all of you, and also so grateful to Edwin for joining us today and sharing his expertise with us. So thank you, everybody. Have a great summer. Have a great rest of your day. and I will look forward to working with you in the months to come. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye all. Be safe. Have a great summer.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.